Thanks for joining us for another Insight Tech Talk. I'm Kate Mayer, Senior Manager of Go-to-Market Solutions with Insight. I'm joined today by Joe Flynn, Director of Services, and Adam Duffy, Product Services Manager. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
So today's episode is called Endpoint and the Hidden Costs of Complexity. I think we can all agree that the game has changed when it comes to enabling businesses, especially with hybrid workforces. We have in-office, working from home, a lot of hybrid happening at this point in time. So it's important to take an approach that balances the costs and complexities of that. And we're going to talk through some of the top concerns that we see every day with clients and how Insight is helping clients to address some of those. So let's get started. Kind of kicking off, Adam, I might have you kind of walk us through this first question. So what are the current concerns surrounding forward and reverse logistics of a traditional endpoint?
Yeah, so nowadays there's really just two main points I like to start with is that you either have devices already or you need to get devices. So lead times, if you need to get those devices, lead times are really a long time. We're not in this time where you can just go and place an order really quickly online and have it in a couple of days, a couple of weeks. We're talking sometimes months. So you really have to plan around that. And let's just say once you finally get the devices or you have them already on hand, you have multiple hands on the devices processing back and forth and shipping them back and forth as well. The shipping costs are really high right now. So you have to think about how that might stack up and feed into the equation. When you have multiple hands also processing those devices, sending them back to those end users, there's all kinds of complications that can occur. So when you think about also managing those assets, you have to know what devices are where at all times, what data is on those devices. So keeping up with all these things, it takes a lot of manpower, it takes a lot of effort. And so those are some of the first things that I think of. And also additionally, now that we have these benefits of cloud PC, I mean, you can spin up a desktop really quickly and easily, and users can jump on from any device and log on to the browser, access all that company data, and keep it in a secure environment. So I think there's options to work around this, considering all these where we are at the moment.
Yeah, great points. And I think, you hit right on it, like, especially right now, supply chain constraints mean there's a lot there for organizations. So kind of, uh, Joe, I think looking at that a little bit further, like what have we found to be the biggest expense when it comes to endpoint management, including its impact on end user productivity?
Yeah, I think the biggest expense is the one that's hard to put a number on, right? Because a lot of times it's soft ROI. And if we look
Right.
at the management today, legacy management, people working remotely, employee experience is huge because employee experience equates to almost productivity. So
Sure.
a couple of the things that will affect productivity or employee experience, if you think of lack of self-service, so the fact that an employee will always have to rely on someone from IT to do something for them on that endpoint, where at that point in time they're going to open a ticket, they're going to wait. So again, it's downtime, it's lack of productivity. If we look at taking what Adam just said around the forward and reverse logistics, getting a user a device, again, it's tied to the cost of a downtime or it's tied to the cost of that employee experience being able to be productive. Longer ticket resolutions is another item. So every time that employee has to call in, support teams get inundated with requests. So that means tickets could sit for 2, 3, 4 days before an employee is actually waiting to do something. And then lastly, when it comes to more of the hard ROI, it's that maintaining the technology curve. The more we keep those legacy technologies on prem, the more it's going to cost to move forward. But additionally, many customers that we find have duplicate tool sets. So now they're spending licensing on tool sets that essentially overlap and they can streamline what they do and streamline the cost into a single one, which also provides more efficiency and flexibility around the framework of how they handle all of that support management.
Sure. So a lot of complexity there impacting cost
Correct.
across the board. Yeah. So I think shifting a little bit, Adam, like at a high level, what kind of cost savings can be captured by clients by modernizing and adopting a cloud first approach when it comes to endpoint management?
Yeah, well, cloud first is a great topic. I love talking about this. And one of the first things that comes to mind on this question really is kind of piggybacking what Joe was talking about, productivity. Productivity, we've been in this remote and hybrid world for a while now, and there's been a lot of studies to show that where we were thinking about before. For example, there's this employee happiness, employee comfort. When you have bring your own devices on the table, you have a whole plethora of new things that these users are able to accomplish, and they're able to spend their time doing what's valuable to them and the way they use their time creatively. So productivity is the top thing that comes to mind. Now, when you have a lot of resiliency with redundancy available from a cloud first approach, you have companies you can grow a lot faster. You don't have to come out of pocket really high just to get started. If you want to grow over to other countries, you have cloud services that are all ready to go. When you're able to leverage those and take advantage of the economies of scale that have been built in place for some time, you end up in a situation where you can do a lot more with a lot less and get going a lot faster.
Sure. And I think Joe, kind of thinking through those impacts as well, like, can you talk us through a little bit of kind of the impacts there from a licensing, support, training perspective?
Yeah, and like I said in previous question, many customers we find license multiple products, and
Right.
no specific product, but a lot of times they can have a product specific to a non-Windows platform, product specific to mobile, and a product specific to Windows PCs. While now with these modern technologies or cloud first technologies, you can consolidate into a single product. So now you're reducing your costs from licensing side, you're reducing the support cost, but then also the training of your employees. It's a little, not much easier, but it is a tad easier to concentrate your employees on a single technology, single tool than trying to stretch them across multiple tool sets of
Sure.
technologies. One of the things I wanted to add, what Adam was hinting towards, is one of the big cost savings, scary enough, is just password resets. If you look at the remote workforce today, if you're tied to an on-prem or tied or dependent to your on-prem environment, even though you may reset your password, the user still has to somehow connect to your environment to log in with that password or to reset that password.
Right.
A cloud first environment allows that user to be anywhere, potentially to reset their password. You can tie multi-factor authentication very easily into it, but then the user's never locked out of their device for an extended period of time or at all. They can simply reset their password on the fly and simply log into that device no matter where they are. Password
Wow.
resets is still, if you look at a service desk side, is still one of the number one items. That's a cost that there we get thousands of tickets just on
Right.
password resets that can go away if you in a cloud first approach.
And that's pretty common, you would say, across a lot of clients that you talk to.
Absolutely, especially now when we're remote and you have to
Right.
reset your password. Now you're figuring out how do I VPN in, right, to get my
Right.
device connected so my device can get the new password. So there's a lot of problems when you're tied onto, you're dependent to on-prem. And that's where the cloud first approach definitely shines.
Yeah. Big impact there. From a lot of perspectives.
Yeah.
Um, so when we think about, the hidden costs, the obvious costs, the, impact to productivity, I'd love kind of both of your take on, like, how does partnering with an experienced solutions integrator like Insight save a company in cost, time, effort across the board?
Okay, I'll just jump in right here. The first thing that comes
Mhm.
to mind for me is when you are able to lean on experts to avoid common pitfalls. When you try to ramp up your own team and provide all that training to get up to speed in order to implement what you need, that's a lot of time lost. And you can also have a lot of issues pop up in the meantime that you get to avoid when you're able to partner with someone who does it every single day.
Sure.
So when you have folks who are doing this every single day and also working with you, not necessarily for you, but as a partner, then you're
Mhm.
able to really leverage a lot of time lost. So you get to ramp up a lot faster, modernize a lot quicker, and maybe ways you hadn't thought of just because of the daily conversations that you'd have with an expert team.
And
Yeah.
Joe, what from your perspective
Yeah.
should we
My,
keep in mind there?
yeah. My perspective on that is the benefit of leveraging a partner like Insight is we do this for many customers. And a lot of times when you're in a corporate world, you tended to be tunnel vision. People tend to be
Right.
tunnel vision on their own environment. And that's great because they know their environment inside and out. But when
Yep.
you start modernizing, you start adopting new technologies, and when you get to a cloud first approach, the technologies don't slow down. The curve just skyrockets. And so, an Insight partner working with many customers, we know the pitfalls, we know the workarounds, we know what other customers are running into. So we're able to bring that value back to you as our customer to be able to keep pushing you forward. Another item is shift the focus of the people who are doing the day to day for you today. Let them concentrate in the business. Let them concentrate on what makes you money as a business, not just keeping the lights on. Because the benefit from Insight is we keep the lights on. We can be very efficient at keeping the lights on. But then now the benefit is we can turn the efficiency back to a value add to you and help keeping you pushing you forward, keep pushing you up that technology curve. So there's
Right.
a lot of benefits there. But the biggest part is the technology curve because once you go in a modern world, the modern world does not slow down for you like it used to. Before, if I
Right.
was on-prem, I could stay in that same environment however long I wanted to, 5, 6, 7 years. Now, once you start shifting to modern, modern is a train. It's
Right.
going no matter what, and it's going at its own pace. So
Right.
the benefit of a partner is to help you keep up with it.
Yeah, that's great. Great points from both of you. So, thank you for your insights today, Joe and Adam. It sounds like there is a ton to be gained from modernizing how we think about endpoint management, and especially with working with a partner like Insight, who is doing this today for a lot of customers, really helping them to kind of meet them where they're at today and help them move forward for the future. So thank you both so much. And to the audience, thank you again for joining us today. We invite you to check out the URL on the screen and join us for a complimentary Managed Endpoint workshop with Insight experts. So thanks, everybody. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.